Hello, my friends. Welcome. My name is Joe. This is the Joe Martino Show. And today I want to talk to you about what I think is one of the most powerful questions you can ask yourself. And the same question was once labeled by one of my clients the most triggering question he ever heard. In fact, we moved it to today's triggering question, this week's triggering question, the most triggering question of the day, week, month, and year. Let's kick it off. This is the Joe Martino Show.
You're listening to The Joe Martino Show, a podcast dealing with all things emotional, relational, and human nature. Joe is a licensed counselor in the state of Michigan, specializing in relationship therapy. He is also the author of the book, The Emotionally Secure Couple. All advice offered in this episode is offered for entertainment and educational purposes only. Enjoy the show.
All right, welcome back. I hope that your day is going well. Wherever your day is, I hope that it's a great day. Today, I want to talk to you very simply about what do you do. In fact, one of my clients calls this the triggering question of the day, week, month, and year. And I really like that. It kind of made me laugh when we were first talking about it. And he was like, yeah, man, that's just the triggering question, period. That's a great descriptor of probably something that is a good question for us. And here's the question. It's really pretty simple. So what are you going to do about it? Whatever it is, so what are you going to do about it? And this is in the context of three questions that I typically ask people. So what? Why, then what? So no matter what's happening, I ask them, okay, so let's assume that what you're saying is true. So what does that mean? Well, why? Okay, then what? And then, okay, so what does that mean? And then why? And then what? And we just keep doing that until you get down to this base of something that can very easily be worked on, that's something that can very easily move you forward, even if moving forward is difficult. So it could be easy to do it and it could still be hard. And so one of the things that we started talking about was like, okay, this thing or that thing is going on in your life. This thing or that thing is happening in your life. So what? So what are you going to do about it? And I cannot tell you how many people I sit with daily, weekly, and they're like, man, this is going on and it's hard, and this is happening and it's hard, and that thing over there is happening and it's really hard. And I'm like, okay, you know what? I hear what you're saying. These things are happening and it's hard. So what are you going to do about it? And that's literally our whole episode today. Whatever is going on in your life, what are you going to do about it? You were abused as a kid? Okay, so what are you doing about it? Your ex-husband abused you and left you and ruined your credit and left you in a terrible financial situation. Okay, so what are you going to do about it? Your ex-wife divorced you and cheated on you and lied about you. Okay, so what are you going to do about it? Your husband died by suicide and left you with 4 kids in a world of hurt. So what are you going to do about it? And here's why it's a triggering question. Because the minute I move to, okay, so what are you going to do about it? People get angry because, well, didn't you hear what happened? Like we as humans, we have this really debilitating and handicapping type belief that because something bad happened to me, I can sit in it and not do anything. Instead of, I can sit in it and do something. Okay, so you had a bad experience at school. So what are you going to do about it? Well, I tried to reach out to my wife and repair our relationship, and she shot me down. Okay, so what are you going to do about it? I've done everything I can do. Okay, so what are you going to do about it? I hate my job. I can't stand my job. My boss is awful. My coworkers are awful. I don't feel like I'm doing anything meaningful. Okay, so what are you going to do about it? Well, I can't because I have to feed my family. Okay, so what are you going to do about it? I don't like where I live. Okay, so what are you going to do about it? Well, rent's really expensive. Okay, so what are you going to do about it? I have a terrible relationship with my kids. Okay, so what are you going to do about it? My adult children never call me. Okay, so what are you going to do about it? My parents, my elderly parents, they're just unreasonable. Okay, so what are you going to do about it? My mom's always giving me advice on how to raise my kids, and she won't stop when I tell her. Okay, so what are you going to do about it? Hopefully you're hearing a theme here. So what are you going to do about it? Well, that's not very therapeutic. Shouldn't you be sitting in it with me? Shouldn't you just kind of be sitting here letting me wallow? No. And this is not mean. This is actually life-giving. Because here's the thing. Once you decide I'm going to continue to try to fix it, then you have something to do. And it's not that the problem goes away. It's not that it's less hard. In fact, often it will get more difficult. But somehow we can transcend the hard, the difficult, by committing to doing. At a very fundamental level, this comes down to what do you believe about what you control about your life? And I believe that the only thing I control is what I do, how I respond, which is not the same as reacting. So my wife and I were talking recently, and the last year, 2 years have been really difficult in ways that we've not experienced difficult before. Throughout our whole marriage, there have been things that have been difficult. Throughout our marriage, our first year, we had a job, we left it, and we went to another job, and that was a train wreck. And then we went to another job, and we were there for 3 years, and that was good. And then I wasn't making enough money to support a family. So what are you going to do about it? Well, I get another job. Well, that job, they ran out of money. Okay, so what are you going to do about it? I started my own business and it failed. Okay, so what are you going to do about it? I moved to Ohio to another job and they lied to get me there. Like literally, I know that sometimes when I don't know that. I feel like sometimes when I tell this story, people think I'm exaggerating. And the truth is I'm not. They literally told me a lie to get me there. Okay, so what are you going to do about it? Well, I went back to grad school. In grad school, I got a job and bought a house. A week after I bought my house, the company went under. Okay, so what are you going to do about it? Well, I went and got another job, all sales, like straight commission, not something I'm well suited for. It was a train wreck. Met by a plane crash, met by the occasional pedestrian zipping in and just blowing it up. So what are you going to do about it? Well, I went and got another job. In fact, I went and got 3 jobs and I worked crazy hours. And then my kids pointed out that they weren't seeing me very much. Okay, so what are you going to do about that? So then I went and changed my work schedule. I went and changed my class schedule. And so we've always had different struggles, right? Like anybody. I almost lost my house because I lost my job and it was in the middle of the '08 crisis. So what are you going to do about it? So what are you going to do? Simple words, right? Not even that big a sentence. So what are you going to do about it? That's it. And so we were talking about like we thought we had this one problem solved and it led to another problem. And then we did solve that problem. And then another problem that we didn't see coming because it was impossible to see it coming because it was someone else just literally not following through on their responsibilities. Another company creating problems. So then we go and we chunk off this step and we go this way and that way. And it isn't going like we hoped it would. And we're tired and we're weary. And to be honest with you, I'm discouraged. Okay, so what are you going to do about it? And so that's what we talked about. What are we going to do about it? We're not ignoring the feelings. I'm not arguing for that. I'm not saying we should pretend that the feelings don't exist. I'm not saying that we should pretend that the pain doesn't exist. I'm not saying that you should ignore it and that you somehow bury it and move on. I read this week that ostriches don't actually bury their heads in the sand. So if they don't, I apologize to them. And if they do, then it still works. I guess it works either way. You can't bury your head in the sand and pretend that whatever it is you're discouraged about, you're not discouraged about. You can feel the feelings, but the question remains, what are you going to do about it? My marriage isn't good. Okay, what are you going to do about it? My business is under threat. Okay, what are you going to do about it? My job, I might lose my job. Okay, what are you going to do about it? My boss is being unreasonable. Okay, what are you going to do about it? And I shared the personal story because I don't want you to think that this is something I just say to you. This is my life. This is what we do. This is what I talk to my kids about. This is what my wife and I talk to each other about. What are you going to do about it? Whatever's going on, feel the feelings. Whatever you feel, acknowledge that. Give your body time to grieve. Give your heart time to grieve. Give your brain time to be sad. But you have to end up at this question. What are you going to do about it? Well, I just don't know. Okay, so what are you going to do about that? What are you going to do to educate yourself? What are you going to do to come up with another idea? What are you going to do to try to troubleshoot it? What are you going to do to try to problem solve it? So what are you going to do about it? And even sometimes it's just, you know what? My husband's in my relationship. My wife's in my relationship. It's not bad. It's just not what it could be. Okay, so what are you going to do about it? I'm sad because my last baby is graduating high school and leaving the roost, so to speak. Okay, so what are you going to do about it? I'm frustrated because my oldest kid, my youngest kid, whatever, my adult child is not acting like an adult. Okay, so what are you going to do about it? That's it. That is literally today's episode. The whole thing. Whatever's going on in your life, so what are you going to do about it? Now, let's talk about a few practical steps on things that we could actually do to come up with the answer to what we're going to do about it. The first thing you need to do is you need to figure out what is the problem that you're trying to solve. What's the problem that you're actually trying to solve? I don't like my boss. Okay, why? Well, because she is inconsistent and mean. Okay, fine. Now, what are you going to do about it? Or, I don't like my job. Okay, why? Well, I don't find it meaningful. Okay. What's the problem you're trying to solve? Are you looking for just meaningful work, or is there a number that you need to meet too? Well, of course, there's a number I need to meet. Okay, awesome. So now you have criteria for a problem that you need to solve. What are you going to do to find a job that pays your bills and you find and requires work that you find meaningful? So what are you going to do about it? On repeat. I don't like where I live. Okay, so what are you going to do about it? Once you know what the problem is that you're trying to solve, then what you want to do is you want to start throwing options down. And this is where we get stuck, because the minute we start talking about options, we tend to negate them, right? We tend to discount them. And a lot of times it's because we're trying to avoid pain. A lot of times it's because we're trying to avoid the discomfort of failing. But if you really want to solve this, you have to start with, so what are you going to do about it? And in order to know what you're going to do about it, you have to throw ideas at the wall. I don't have a job and I need one. Okay, so what are you going to do about it? And look, I was there. I remember I was sitting at lunch with some guys that I went to grad school with, and I was like, I just don't have a job. And the one guy was like, then go get a job at a gas station. And immediately in my head, I'm like, well, I can't. And so I said that. I was like, I can't. And he's like, why? I'm like, well, I got a wife and kids and school. He's like, and no job. You're going to have to prioritize. And that becomes the next thing. After you figure out, okay, what's the problem I'm trying to solve? What are the options that I have to solve it? Then you're going to have to make priority decisions. And this is where it's hard, because now we could fail. So what are you going to do about it? Let's say the first 3 things you picked to try didn't work. So what are you going to do about it? So I ended up working. I took a job where I worked all weekend so I could be home during the week. I could work at school, et cetera, et cetera. I had another job that I could mostly do from home. I was hybrid before hybrid was cool, because this was long before COVID. And the question remains always, so what are you going to do about it? What's the problem you're trying to solve? What are the options? And then how do you prioritize the problems and the options? And so I didn't take a job at a gas station, but I did go apply. I applied at 3 different gas stations, but a job that fit better came in while I was waiting to hear back. And one of them actually did offer me a job, I think. And I was like, yeah, I'm good. I actually got a different job. Thank you though, right? Like, you have to run it out. Now, was my goal to work at a gas station? No, my goal was to do what I'm doing, but I had to get there. I had to solve the problem of getting there. And that comes down to this question. So what are you going to do about it? Whatever it is, you have a choice. You have the power to change. No, I don't. I'm stuck with this handicap my whole life. Okay. Unfortunately, that might be true. I don't know what the handicap would be, so I want to be careful here. But certainly there are people that are stuck with consequences for life. In fact, I'll often say to people, if you were a child and you fell and hurt your leg and your leg had to be amputated just below the knee, no one's going to blink if you limp. Well, no one except little kids is going to blink if you limp, right? If you sit down and your knee's gone. I get it. Your leg's gone below your knee. And we have emotional consequences like that. We have emotional scars like that. Things happen in our childhood that we carry with us through our adult lives. And that doesn't change the fact that we are responsible to answer the question, so what am I going to do about it? But Joe, you don't understand. My adult parents, my elderly parents, they're mean. Yes, I actually do understand. So what are you going to do about it? But Joe, you don't understand. Fill in the blank. You're right, I don't understand. But what are you going to do about it? What's the problem you're trying to solve? What are your options? You're going to prioritize those options as solutions, right? Those potential solutions. And then you have to take a risk. You have to take a risk. I want to do things to help other men. So what am I going to do about it? I want to do things to help other people. So what am I going to do about it? I want to make sure that my family gets on vacation. So what am I going to do about it? I want to make sure my bills get paid. So what am I going to do about it? There's this hard thing happening. So what am I going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? What are the steps you're taking to make the change you say you want? Because here's the really, really harsh truth. If you're not taking any steps to change it, you don't actually want it. If you're not taking any steps to actually change what's going on, you don't actually want change. You want to be able to complain about how hard something is. Years and years and years ago, I worked under a guy. Well, I didn't work under, but I was under the leadership of a guy who had some good leadership skills and some not so good leadership skills. One of the things that he said, though, that I think is take it to the bank truth. One of the things he would say regularly was, people do what they want to do when they want to do it. Just last night, I was talking to a guy who says, oh man, I want to come to your Saturday morning group. No, you don't, because you haven't come. You may want to come, but you don't actually want to come more than you want to sleep. And that's okay. I'm not here to judge you, but you need to face what is, right? Put another way, oh, so you want to come to my Saturday morning group and you're not getting up in time to make it here, so what are you going to do about it? Well, Joe, you could change the time for them. I could. I'm not going to, but I could. So what are you going to do about it? You go to a different group. There's a solution. You could Go to bed earlier Friday night. What are you going to do about it? What are potential solutions to this problem that you say you want to change? And if you're not coming up with anything, what are you going to do to educate yourself to get some potential solutions? And if you don't act on any of them, then you don't actually want it to change more than you want whatever you're getting by not acting on them. All right, so there is this week's, this month's, this year's triggering question. So what are you going to do about it? Thanks so much for listening. We'll catch you next week.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, please share with a friend. And hey, give us that rating in your podcast store. Until next time, change possible.